Okay, welcome everyone to the council meeting for April 4, 2023. I would first like to call the meeting to order and recognize that we are meeting on the traditional territory of LHTAKO DENE. I know that Councillor Rudenberg is at the UBCM Housing Summit in Vancouver, and I don't see her on yet, but I'm expecting, are we expecting her to chime in sometime?
Maybe.
Maybe, okay. I'll keep looking for her. Okay, I need an approval of the agenda, but before we do that, we have two late items. The first late item is item D1, and that is the minutes from the last meeting, and item number K2, which is a report from Councillor McKelvie on her attendance at a local government training course in Prince George. So with that, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Okay, moved Councillor Vick, seconded Councillor Runge. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'd like to get a motion to adopt the minutes. And again, this is a late attachment. We apologize for that. But you do have the minutes circulated in front of you. So if you're prepared to make a motion to adopt those minutes, Alderman, boy, we're going back a ways. Councillor McKelvie, seconded Councillor Elliott. All in favor? Carried. Now we have a presentation on the workforce attraction video campaign update. I'm turning the floor over to Manager Reid, and this would be admin report number 51/23.
Okay, so I'm going to start just by playing the video, and then I'll go into the report after that, but play the video first. This is just one of 4 of the videos we did.
My family relocated for work from Alberta when I was 10. I've lived here my whole life, except for studying for my master's in physiotherapy down south in Vancouver. After graduation, I was drawn back to Quesnel for job placement, and I can't ever imagine leaving again. My name is Erin Gagne, and I am an inpatient physiotherapist with Northern Health at the G.R. Baker Memorial Hospital. The most rewarding part of my job is helping my patients achieve their goals. There's nothing better than getting someone on the path to going home. I feel there is lots of opportunity for healthcare workers in Quesnel. We are a small center, so you get to work more closely with your patients, and you get to see a wider variety of conditions, which helps you as a clinician better yourself. My work mantra is movement for life. As a physiotherapist, it's so important for people to continue moving to live the best life that they can. In my personal life, I also practice this. In the winter, I do quite a few different types of recreational activities. I backcountry ski and downhill ski, and I know to dabble in a little bit of snowboarding as well. Accessibility is so important for me to be able to go outside. You know, we all live busy lives, so being close to what you want to do really makes a big difference in a busy world. Quesnel is an endless outdoor playground.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is just to provide council with an overview of our workforce attraction videos and the marketing campaign that was launched last year. Attracting the right people to fill skilled positions is challenging for local employers. This is a common theme that we've heard even prior to our current workforce challenges. Using grant funding as well as contributions from the businesses involved, the city partnered with 4 employers to showcase the variety of work available in Quesnel and the lifestyle opportunities available when not at work. So we have 4 videos altogether, and you just saw one. The videos and associated social media campaigns directed viewers to a landing page, which was quesnel.ca/work, with links to more job opportunities. Social media campaigns ran through the @Explore Quesnel channel in 2022, featuring 3 of the 4 videos. One of the videos featured an employer who had just laid off some workers, so we're holding that one for when that employer is hiring again. Overall, the videos had a reach of 325,377 and 683,114 total impressions. There were 8,000 link clicks. A 4th campaign will be shared at a later date. Clips from the 4 videos were compiled into a 30-second commercial that ran in a public service announcement slot on several networks in Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and Northern Ontario. And those channels were listed there. And during the campaign, the Working in Quesnel page was the 4th most visited page on the city website, with 6,824 views by over 5,000 users. And the city's homepage also saw an increase in traffic.
Good, thank you, Amy. Does there's no motion, it's just for information only, so I'll turn it over to council. Does any councillors have any questions or comments? Councillor Vic.
I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank you for the effort, Amy. The community is working through many workforce challenges across all sectors, and I, for one, really appreciate the effort to try and help us with that issue, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vic. Anyone else? Thank you, Amy, and I will say that you received a very nice compliment at the last regional district meeting regarding the healthcare traction program that was taking place in the South Cariboo, and they attributed their success to your good work, so thank you for that. Okay, so thank you, Amy. Now we're going to go to our next delegation, and that is Manager Robinson and Ted Trayer on the FireSmart season. We have 2 delegations tonight. So the first one is on FireSmart.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us tonight. And I'll turn the floor over to Ted, and I'll change slides.
Excellent. Thank you, Erin. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk about FireSmart. Again, here in our own backyards. Thanks for being here. Spring is just around the corner, hopefully, and the snow will eventually melt. And with that, it's time for us to get busy in our own backyards and making our own areas and our communities FireSmart. So a little bit of presentation overview, talk a little bit about recent wildfire seasons, how wildfires have kind of changed in BC, some FireSmart activities we've been dealing with in the Quesnel area for 2022 and 2023, and then opportunity for questions at the end. So the image you can see is a very common image that we've seen in our community in the province for the last handful of years. For those who can't see it, it's basically a smoke-filled big part of the province, and it's been all too common in recent summers. So some information about 2021. The previous years before that were below average fire activity, and the BC Wildfire Service faced a lot of challenging efforts in 2021. Someone asked me about 2022. What was that like? If anyone recalls, it was damp, it was moist. We could have a campfire and you could breathe. So it was an uneventful year for our friends in red and blue. So getting back to 2021, again, it was a hot summer, over 180 evacuation orders, over 300 alerts, 56 days of provincial state of emergency, over 1,600 wildfires, and over 860,000 hectares burned. Last year was only about 133,000, so much smaller year. Again, in 2021, 67 wildfires of note, and a wildfire of note is a fire that is particularly visible or poses a threat to public safety. So if you're keeping track 3 out of the last 6 years have been basically off the charts as far as our records go. Basically, you're looking at total wildfires from 2021, from 2017, 1,300, and a high of over 2,000 in 2018. Hectares burned, basically looking at almost 1 million hectares or over 1 million hectares burned in those significant years. Wildfires of note range from about low 60s to over 100. Evacuation orders around low 60s to 181. Evacuation alerts 124 to a maximum of over 300. Suppression costs in the neighborhood of $500 million. Significant impacts to our province, right? And days of provincial emergency, a low of 24 and a high of 71. So you're talking big impacts to our communities and to our province. So wildfires in BC are changing a little bit. It's getting closer to our own backyard. So it's changing the way we're having to deal with things. So BC's experiencing serious and sustained increase in extreme wildfire behavior in the wildland-urban interface, commonly called the WUI.
Yeah, and then just to remind council and the public, the wildland-urban interface is that zone of transition between the wildland and where people's homes are, the lands in the communities next to and surrounded by the wildlands that are more at risk to wildfire. And of course, we've built up over the years in these forested areas, and so it increases our risk in our forest-dependent communities here.
So this image is about what they call the WUI disaster sequence. In the middle of summer, that's when things get warm and dry. We have warmer fuels, warmer weather, and we have lots of topography in BC. So we get wildland fires, very common in the summertime. And you can get rapid fire spread and some high intensities of these wildfires due to those fuels and the weather surrounding us. And those can lead to urban fires, right? Because it gets close to our communities, right? And very quickly, our resources can become overwhelmed because the suppression is a challenge at that point. If you're the first home that gets the call, you're probably okay. The second home may be okay. The third one, everyone's at the first 2 homes, right? So you have that reduced level of fire protection, right? The lack of resources leads to reduced effectiveness. And then you end up getting disaster, things that basically getting many homes destroyed because our resources and our first responders can't respond to that large of a number in that short of a time period. So what is FireSmart? The FireSmart's goal is to break that disaster sequence, right? You see that fire getting close to that community, right? So if we put effort in and around those communities, in and around those houses, that can make all the difference in the world. And that's where we can actually make a difference is right there. And it involves our people in our own backyards, right? And our communities as well. So that's what FireSmart is all about. So it's putting power in the hands of the people, right? And power in the hands of people in decision-making as well. So we can look at it in the larger context as well around our communities. So what we can do is how we can reduce our risk around our communities and around our own backyards.
And it's important to note that this nests, just like those Russian stacking dolls, our fuel management and our FireSmart initiatives, they're all of a kind. How we influence the fire approaching our community, and then what homeowners can do at their level to make their homes more defensible.
So what the wildfire scientists have done, right, the FireSmart scientists have done, they've gone to the communities such as the Littons of the world after the fire has gone through, and they see all the houses that have burned, but there's 3 houses over there that didn't. And they look at them and they study them, right? And they look at the characteristics around them, and they develop theories and concepts, and then they tested those theories and concepts and come up with lots of tips and lots of recommendations for homeowners to reduce the risks around our homes. My parents in 1972 put 2 cedar trees right beside their front door because everybody else did that in Canada. That was landscaping 101, right? But now we've learned that that's probably not what we want to do, right? Because those things go up like a Roman candle. So last year was my first year as the FireSmart coordinator here in Quesnel, in the Quesnel area, and did lots of door-to-door outreach, lots of information booths at lots of different community events, did lots of home assessments, talked to lots of people, and gave out some rebates for people that did home improvements to their homes and around their areas. We developed some efforts in the neighborhood recognition program up in South Hills, where they did lots of fuel reduction and had a big cleanup day at that point. Provided lots of literature to lots of people, right, to give people different ways to see how things that they can do. Did presentations to different groups and organizations, and put some signs up on people's front lawns. And that was actually a really good one, and it was a low cost, and it really grabbed people's attention. So the neighborhood recognition program is basically designed at a FireSmart candidate, and like I say, it's a bit of a pat on the back. So the South Hills neighborhood in the northwest component of South Hills became the first community in Quesnel, in the Quesnel area, to be recognized under this provincial program. So, and what it is, there's power in numbers, right? Because you can have the FireSmart poster child in your backyard, but your next door neighbor could have everything possible that could burn right next door. So it's power in numbers and strength in numbers, and it makes a real big difference. So we've got some really key people up there, some keen people that are working on things, and it's great having neighbors talk to neighbors, because that's one of the easy ways to provide the message. So for 2023, again, lots more things planned, lots more outreach planned. We've got a movie night planned, talking to some schools, lots more information booths, talking to our local First Nations, and going to the home show as well. Home assessments and rebates have increased this year, so we're looking at 10 for $1,000 each. Also looking at farm and ranch assessments, because our farms and ranches are out there in that are around our community, so a lot of times they get impacted quite significantly as well. And we're looking at the neighborhood recognition program. We've got 2 neighborhoods planned this year. Hopefully, going to keep the South Hills neighborhood going, and then we're also targeting the area up past on the Quesnel-Hickson Road, just past MCON, just past the fuel treatment trails up by the airport, because that's a good neighborhood to look at as well. A lot of our neighborhoods are very mature, so there's lots of fuels around our neighborhood, so you can only kind of choose a couple to work on at a time. So we're hopefully going to make one step at a time and hopefully get more areas going in there.
Yeah, so other 2023 efforts, continue fuel reduction for folks, continue our literature and signage campaigns for outreach and education. Ted has lots more presentations and collaborations with even mental health groups or community groups, youth groups. We're really branching out there. Continuing our door-to-door campaign, and then we have a public meeting coming up, which Council will learn more about in the coming weeks. On May 29th, we have I think they call him the godfather or grandfather of FireSmart. He's really one of the founding members of the FireSmart movement in Canada, and he's coming to give a public presentation and a tour here. So stay tuned. I'll have more information coming soon on that.
So in closing, I guess, spring is coming. I hope you're ready for this season. And wildfire prevention begins before the fire occurs and before the fire season starts, and it starts in our own backyards. And it's a shared responsibility. And what FireSmart is to me is a pair of glasses. It's a pair of lenses that I look through. And I actually have contacts now, or I've had the surgery, so I actually don't need the glasses anymore. So I always see it. And I hope that I can loan these glasses to anybody who needs to see and look at that from that perspective, because once you see what the impacts are and what you can do in your own backyards, you'll never go back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron and Ted. Do we have any questions? And again, this is just for council's information. Do we have any questions from council? Comments? Councillor Elliott.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Ted. Yeah, this is a great initiative, but just for clarity, so the way I'm reading it, there's going to be 10 home assessments and rebates this year? Yeah.
Typically, it takes about 3-to-1 assessments to actually get a rebate actually applied for by somebody. So we have a total of 10 rebates of $1,000. We've actually looking at splitting that, so you can do one for $500 or one for $1,000, depending on the different thresholds that you meet. And typically, it's a 2-to-1. So to get the $1,000 rebate, you need to do $2,000 worth of work.
And just so council knows, we've offered the rebate program for 3 years now, giving 10 $500 rebates, and we have yet to be fully subscribed for our rebate program. It is surprising, but they're not very popular for some reason, so we're going to work on trying to get these ones out the door.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, you two. Is there any further comment or question from council? Okay, thanks very much, and we'll just let you clear the table there and get ready for our next delegation. I'm not sure who or how many of you are going to present, so maybe you could just introduce yourself, because I don't know who you are. I've got your names here, but I might get the wrong one, so take it away.
Hi there. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for inviting or allowing us to be here to present for this. My name is Matt Duran. I work for BC Wildfire Services here in Quesnel at the zone office down at the airport. This is my supervisor, John Salewski. He's the wildfire officer for Quesnel. And this is Peter Holub. He's from the Cariboo Fire Center in Williams Lake. And he is the cultural and prescribed fire specialist for the entire Cariboo. So we are going to do a brief presentation on a prescribed fire that we've been working on for the last 8 months out at the North Star interchange. It's done with a variety of different partners and stakeholders. And so we're just kind of bringing you guys up to speed so you're not so surprised when there's fire in the middle of the grass roundabouts. So yeah. So we started working on this project around June, July, just information gathering and figuring out who would be important to bring into this. That was an ongoing process for the duration of it. Thankfully, now I figured out everybody who needs to be involved. But as it stands right now, the project lead is myself. We have Dan Hauser, who works for us in the zone office as well. He's going to be the ignition specialist. We have Peter Holub, who is our prescribed fire specialist. So he's the science guy who knows everything. We have John Salewski, who's going to be the overall head of everything. Aaron has been a go-to for us in contact with the city for a number of years. We have BC Hydro involved. We have the LHTAKO DENE. We have NASCO. Apologies. We have MODI, we have MCON, Quesnel Fire Department, and the Quesnel District are all involved in this in some capacity. We also have a multimedia group from within BCWS, or BC Wildfire Services, that is going to be taking audio-visual of this and utilizing this to promote other prescribed fire within other communities, because this one is somewhat unique, or fairly unique, because it's so close to a major community. So the intent behind this burn, behind this for this prescribed fire, is it'll reduce the potential for right-of-way fires. So last fall, one of the roundabouts actually caught on fire, totally happenstance, and it kind of proved the point that it needs to be managed in some way. This will also reduce any likelihood of any fire damage to any utility infrastructure or fire department infrastructure. There is a fire department water tower just up from the roundabout that they approached us about mitigating any potential wildfire, as well as any adjacent timber. So there are trees around there that we obviously don't want to have catch fire. It'll help facilitate better coordination, communication, and allow for training between the structural Quesnel Fire Department and ourselves. As fire seasons become more robust and more communities become impacted, the coordination between the structural fire departments and BC Wildfire needs to become more integrated. We need to learn from each other, learn what each other's boundaries are, and be able to rely on each other out in the field. This is giving us that opportunity to for them to learn from us and us to learn from them and what their capabilities are and what their limits are going to be. As well as the intent for this is going forward, they would be the Quesnel Fire Department would be the ones taking the reins on this fire. So it would kind of become a yearly, if not a bi-yearly thing, twice a year. Where they would learn from us, but be able to take the reins themselves and be able to manage any kind of grass fires going forward within the Quesnel region. This will also introduce the public to prescribed fire conditions, similar to what is currently being used within the city of Williams Lake, of which Peter has developed those burn plans. And very recently, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, they burnt off Boitano Park, as well as the Stampede grounds. And that's been an ongoing thing yearly, just partially for cultural aspect, for public awareness aspect, as well as for training. And then one of the final things is we want to collaborate with the First Nations, the local First Nations, specifically LHTAKO, DENE, but also NASCO, and work alongside these members and facilitate better integration with them in their own communities, as well as helping them learn how to manage their environments while learning from them at the same time. So just where we're sitting at with it right now, the prescription for it has been signed off. The ignition plan is being finalized as we speak. We will be having a BC Wildfire film crew on site. The MODI permit has been approved. The site map, which I will show you guys in a little while, has been finalized. We've done all the First Nations consultations, so they're fully on board, and they are going to actively participate in it when we begin ignitions. And we were intending to do this spring, but due to circumstances beyond our control, we've postponed it until the fall, which does give us a lot more time to let the public know what's going on and to kind of cross all the T's, dot all the I's kind of thing. So I'm assuming you guys can see the map. This is the red lines are obviously the areas that we intend to burn. Not all at once. We're not just going to go wholesale and just light everything at the same time. It is going to be done in a very structured method and with all prevention or fire suppression resources on hand at all times, and including road control, which is what we've discussed with MCON and sorted everything out with them as well. So it is about 10.5 hectares in size. Each treatment unit will be treated slightly differently, and the trees and vegetation that are in there are going to be managed for that fire so that we don't have any trees kind of just flare up in the middle of while people are driving by. Some trees will be removed, nothing within the roundabout. This is all discussions we've had with MODI already, but trees that are encroaching on their ability to maintain that site for their own their own reasons. So we're going to remove some of those, dispose of it through the city, and then we'll light up in the fall when there's more grass to burn. So some of the strategies that we're going to utilize for this, it is intended to be a low-intensity ground burn, so it's not going to be 6-8 foot high flames. It's not supposed to climb up any trees. In reality, you're not even really going to see black smoke. It's going to be more grayish, white. It's not going to be high intensity. It's going to be done in a slow, controlled manner. It is going to be hand ignition, so there are going to be personnel with drip torches lighting off small strips at a time, backing their way down, and basically until the entire roundabout or treatment unit is ignited. Any kind of infrastructure that may be threatened, we are going to manage for that. We are either going to mow around it, so the hydro poles, which I've already been in talks with BC Hydro about, or black lining, so just an even lower intensity burn to just burn the material on its own around said infrastructure so that it isn't put at risk by the larger fire. And then, it's just going to be the crews on site, as well as a potential 5-pack of LHTAKO DENE that's going to be assisting us, as well as a 5-pack of NASCO that's going to be assisting us. And then kind of questions, comments, concerns that have come up over the time frame, which are still being remedied or have been. We are going to continue the First Nations collaboration. I've been notified that there's a couple fox dens around there, so we're going to manage for that. We're going to make sure the contracts are in place for all of that, hence the City Council presentation. So that's one of those boxes checked. Thank you. BCWS site prep is, we're going to be doing that likely this spring. And the highway control has been sorted out. Public media forum is something I need to work with Aaron pertaining to how we're going to get this message out to the general public at large, likely several months in advance, so that they're, like I said, they're not surprised by any of this. If you guys do have any questions, by all means, please reach out to me or John at the Zone, or even Aaron knows how to get a hold of me. We talk on a regular basis. So, and I open up the floor to you guys if you have any questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. I'm going to open the floor up to questions. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much for the report and what you're doing to keep us safe. Thanks for mentioning the foxes, because I've seen them down there, and it was a concern of mine. And just, I'm not trying to be flippant, but I'm just ignorant of the situation. Why would we burn when it's all grass and you could just cut it and take it away? I don't.
So a big part of this is the social license, to be quite honest. We got to change the narrative around Smokey the Bear and change it to having fire as a land management tool. Not only the social license of education of the public, but also getting them to understand that we can do this in a safe manner. That's a big part of this. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to switch from fearing fire to respecting it and its use. The other piece of this is the Indigenous relations piece. And there's a great book called Forgotten Fires. If you get a chance to read it, it's amazing. But the First Nations have burned for millennia around here. And it's a great way to reestablish those relationships and to start building that culture back up in their communities. So there's a bunch of layers that we're working on. So the hazard reduction is a piece of this, but it's also all the other points that Matt mentioned, in addition to all the rest of the stuff, the social side.
Thank you. That's very educational.
It was a great question, too. It wasn't a flippant one. For me, my leader's intent when I asked Matt to go down this road was to get the fire department and us on the same radio channels and just work together, so meet each other. The best times to exchange cards is not when there's smoke in the air. So it's a great training exercise is what I was kind of...
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Again, this is for information. Good work, gentlemen. And I actually have a question, and that is that with that interchange, when is the biggest threat? In the springtime, when the grass from last year is obviously there, or in the fall after this year's grass has died?
It actually can fall on anywhere in the spectrum of whenever it's dead. The drier the material, the more likely it is prone to ignition, as we saw in fall when one of those areas caught on fire due to simply brakes malfunctioning. Right-of-way fires are actually very common throughout this province, and you see areas that have grass that have burned either in the spring when it's been dead all winter, and as a result it's dry as a bone, even though it had snow over top of it. That snow with the constant frost, it actually wicks all that moisture away really, really rapidly, and it just becomes drier and drier and drier to the point where it can just light. And so if you actually go out onto Highway 20 out in the Chilcotin, there are highway fires there every year, both in the fall and in the spring. Basically, fire can happen at any time. It just needs the right circumstances.
So best case scenario for your program would be a burn in the spring and another one in the fall?
And that is the intent going forward. We just missed the window for this spring. Going in the fall, once there's growth, and we would ask them not to mow probably in August, so that we could get that growth that would provide enough fuel to burn. And then once it burned, it would likely, as long as it doesn't freeze right away, it would likely green up quite nicely. And then come fall or come spring, we would do another burn to eliminate that as well. All the while continuing that public engagement of them getting used to seeing fire on the landscape, and like Pete said, respecting it, not fearing it.
And finally, what kind of a time frame are you looking at to do the entire area, like in terms of hours or days?
So initially, we're looking, right out of the gate, we're looking at about a day to burn and then a day to patrol to make sure everything's out. It really wouldn't take that long. It is only 10.5 hectares in size. It is all grass, which is quick to ignite, quick to put out. So yeah, we're looking at around 2 days. And yeah, that's kind of.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment, question from council? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen, and we'll just let you clear the area before we get to our next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Chris.
And the next item on the agenda goes to me as the city's director on the Cariboo Regional District, and I apologize that I know that previously we used to receive the board highlights, and I never got them, and so I asked, and I think our city manager tracked them down, and so I thank him for doing that. So I'm going to go back to January. I'm not going to, I think we've got about 6 or 8 pages here of board highlights, but I'm going to go back to January. January the 13th, the CRD board agreed to hold the referendum on the Quesnel Pool, and they were moving to officially proceed to referendum, and that'll come back up under on another date. The CRD entered into an agreement with the Canadian Red Cross on disaster risk awareness campaign, and they will be accessing $197,000 in total funding from the Red Cross to support efforts to promote disaster readiness and awareness in the Cariboo Regional District. The Community Energy Association attended and presented charges forward with the Charge North initiative, and this is for automobile or electric vehicle charging stations throughout the Cariboo. The board commenced readings of the Bushy-Melbourne Neighborhood Plan, and that is in conjunction with the Quesnel Fringe Area Official Community Plan. Over the page to the last item on January 13th, Osisco Development presented to the Cariboo Regional Board. Chris Farness and Haley Archer from Osisco provided the board with an update. And I got to commend Osisco for their ongoing contribution and support for the Barkerville Heritage Site. February 2 and 3, I'm not going to go into all the detail. Over the page, there were concerns raised with changes to the provincial emergency program approaches and guidelines, and this has some ramifications because with jurisdictional boundary of over 85,000 square kilometers and a population of just over 62,000 people, taking on new responsibilities for the regional district in managing emergency situations over a large geographic area without new funding is not feasible. So stay tuned for more information on that one. To the February 23-24 meeting, the North Central Association resolutions. There were 4 resolutions that were approved. 1, returning to a market value-based approach for provincial sales tax levied on private vehicle sales. I would certainly be voting in favor of that one. Additional resources, funding, and support for local governments as the province implements the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. The next one is the notification to rural residents by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure about subdivisions and proposals in their area. And finally, equal opportunities for local governments to be informed and participate in internet upgrade projects which are currently overseen by the Ministry of Citizen Services and Internet Service Providers. At that same meeting, the City of Williams Lake provided an update on the healthcare landing program, and this is where it was noted that the project is based on a successful program launched in 2015 by the City of Quesnel with the Cariboo-Chilcotin Regional Hospital District support. And finally, over to the March 23-24 meeting. That's when the board moved to finally move forward with the referendum authority to upgrade the Quesnel Arts and Recreation Center. General voting day will be June 10, 2023. And also, interestingly enough, the South Cariboo Joint Committee decided not to proceed with going to referendum for an aquatic center. And the reasoning was the significant increases in construction costs, interest rates, and cost of living. The Joint Committee has determined that building and operating an aquatic center is not financially feasible at this time. And also at that meeting, the 2023 five-year capital financial plan, or pardon me, the financial plan was adopted, and there was also an upcoming change to directors' remuneration, but worry not, while they're leaving compensation for municipal directors the same, so that's comforting. Upcoming meetings, April 11, we have our North Cariboo Joint Advisory Committee, and April 14, we have our next Cariboo Regional District and Cariboo-Chilcotin Regional Hospital Board meetings. And I promise you that these reports will be more regular from now on. So are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we will now go to Director of Development Services to present a report on the Quesnel Tillicum Society Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1905.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor McKelvie has a report to do first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I do have a question.
On the regional district?
No, sir. On the next report, I thought we had I thought we changed the policy that these reports were not required anymore. Because we used to go to UBCM and everyone would do a report on them, and we took that out as far as I remember on the policies. So I'm just...
Yeah, I agree with that, but certainly, I'm sorry, Councillor McKelvie, I skipped right over that. It's sort of like last meeting with the Koi Cup when I was hurrying to get everything done. So would you like to know? Okay, I take that comment and I agree with you that we had agreed, and I don't know if it sort of made it into policy that we, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I recollect properly, we just said that for the events where there's a large group attending at the same event, such as UBCM, such as sometimes at NCLGA, we said that it's not required for everyone to bring a report because they were all so similar, because most people attended the same meetings and went to the same ministers' meetings and whatnot. But for one-off travel things, I don't think that policy applied to that, so I think this would still be appropriate to bring this report.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I'm going to go now to Councillor McKelvie to actually comment on her report. You can read it verbatim. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Paull. As a new councillor, I attended my first LGLA session last month and took 30 pages of notes. Not to worry, I'm not going to read them. LGLA stands for Local Government Leadership Academy. These educational sessions for new and incumbent municipal and CRD representatives are an excellent opportunity to learn what it is we are doing and network with others who know more than we do, which in my case was very helpful. The 100 or so northern attendees were kept highly motivated for 2 half days and one very full day of entertaining and rejuvenating instruction. There was a slate of relevant topics carefully selected to enhance our jobs. We know we are facing some real challenges in our respective communities in BC. The quote that resonated for me during the conference was that our superpower is empathy. Understanding the complexity of our challenges is the only way we can implement the positive action we need. And lastly, I'd like to say that for me to attend the LGLA session was $803. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKelvie, and my apologies for missing that. That's a late agenda item, and I didn't slip it into the pages there, so that's my bad. Okay, now we will go to admin report number 28/23, bylaw 1905, Quesnel Tillicum Society bylaw extension report, Director Turner to report.
Just if I can, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to declare conflict of interest. I am the executive director for the Quesnel Tillicum Society, so conflict of interest, please.
Thank you, Councillor Goulet. Okay, it's over to you, Director Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. And the purpose of this report is to consider Quesnel Tillicum Society's request for a second 6-month extension for the zoning amendment of Bylaw 1905, currently at third reading. The development is for proposal for new comprehensive development to allow a new multi-unit apartment dwelling on North Fraser Drive. The bylaw received third reading in 2021. A first extension was requested in November, and this is a second extension. I can report to council that there is significant progress happening on this file, and we're excited to how it's moving forward from a staff perspective. The recommendation is that council approves providing a second 6-month extension to the Quesnel Tillicum Society for Bylaw 1905 as per section 2.9.2 of the Development Application Procedures Bylaw 1531/2002, and this will have it expiring in October 19, 2023.
Okay, thank you, Director Turner. Councillor Runge, are you moving or are you discussing? Councillor Runge is moving and Councillor Elliott is seconding. Do we have any discussion? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I think I know the answer, but just in the summary on the fourth bullet there, an additional 6-month extension may be requested. I'm happy to hear that you said that there's been, movement forward, but can we only do a 6-month?
As per the bylaw, that's the way it's written, and I think it's good to keep it on track. This applicant is, an applicant that we're used to working with, but it's always good to keep applicants moving along.
Okay, thank you. I have a mover and seconder. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, you can call Councillor Goulet back in, please. Okay, we have council information package, and there was nothing requested to be brought forward. Moving to bylaws, we have bylaw number 1941, City of Quesnel Parks and Public Places bylaw 1941 of 2023, and it's up for final adoption. Councillor Elliott and Councillor Vic. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Boy, you'd think there was a hockey game. This thing is going so fast. Okay, so we have no changes to upcoming meeting schedule. No changes to committee appointments. We have, do we have any announcements regarding future events? Well, I'd just like to say on a past event, congratulations to the Roos. I mean, that was a great tournament. Okay, now I'll open the floor to gallery questions. Nothing tonight. RJ, you didn't want to come up and make a speech? Okay. So we have no gallery questions, so therefore I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Runge, Councillor McKelvie. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.